Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today's video is about whether you can use clear coat to fill in scratches. The answer may surprise you, but hopefully it won't confuse you. There are lots of different types of clear coat out there and a few different types of scratches as well. Before we jump into it, just an aside here. You'll notice this isn't a project video, it's a discussion topic. One of my goals for this year, being that it's early January right now, is to make my project videos flow a little better. So that's going to include, well, hopefully posting them sequentially without having so many projects running concurrently that are kind of confusing, jumping back and forth, but also trying to cram a little bit more content into each video in terms of progress on the project. In order to do that, because I spend most of my time, there are only so many hours in a day, and I spend most of them working in an office, there will be some videos like this thrown in where I don't have that project work going in, but we're going to discuss some topics that I think are going to be very helpful to you guys, mostly because they come up all the time in questions. So, without further ado, today's topic: can you use clear coat to fill in scratches? There are lots of different kinds of clear coat out there. For example, these 2K automotive clear coats. There are your typical rattle can clear coats, the acrylics, the lacquers, all sorts of stuff, and they all have different properties in terms of filling. There are also different kinds of scratches. So we're going to talk a bit about what kinds of scratches can be filled in with clear and which ones can't, and what types of clear work. But let's keep in mind, clear coat is not filler, sealer is not filler. So generally speaking, that's not what clear coat is for. I don't actually have anything to show you in this corner. That was a pointless change of scenery just for the heck of it. But anyway, if you sand your finish flat, you are creating scratches. If you sand it flat to a proper grit for recoating, for example, 800 grit, clear coat will fill in those scratches. In fact, that's part of what it's designed to do. So I often hear these questions about people wondering if they can clear coat straight over their gloss color finish from a spray can. And I say, well, you should sand first so that the clear coat will stick, because new paint doesn't stick to gloss generally. And they say, well, I'm worried about the scratches. That's the idea. You create those scratches so that the new coat will bond, so that the new paint will bond, the clear coat in this case, and that clear coat will easily fill in an 800 grit scratch. If you go too fine, like a 2000 grit, because you're worried about it, then it probably won't stick properly. So you have to hit a balance. Somewhere in that 600 to 1,000 grit range is generally what we do for that. So in terms of that, the answer is yes, clear coat will fill in scratches, and it doesn't really matter which clear coat you use. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, will clear coat fill in a gouge or a more aggressive, like 100 grit sanding scratch that you've left in the wood and not filled properly or not sanded out properly? Generally, no. If you build up enough coats of something thick, something that's a high build clear, for example, a polyester urethane, a 2K, a 2-component clear coat, yeah, you can do that. It will fill in. It will take more coats. You'll do like 4 coats, sand back flat, and then another 4, and that'll get you to a final finish that'll work depending on how deep the gouge is. Something like a polyester sealer, which is also clear, can get there a lot faster, but if you're asking this question, you shouldn't be using polyester sealer because it dries almost immediately and is very difficult to work with and ruins paint guns if you don't know what you're doing. If you're using just like an acrylic clear out of a can, I should really edit that out, but I'm not going to. It's going to be too thin. And if you try to build up enough of it to really get that scratch filled in, you're going to have problems with it not hardening properly, not drying properly. That's not what it's made for. It doesn't have a catalyst in it. So you can't build it up that thick. It'll take ages upon ages upon ages, and you're risking product failures more substantially with that sort of thing. Now, there is one kind of exception, not really, to this rule, and that's nitrocellulose lacquers. They have some very interesting properties in terms of being able to fill because they burn right into each other. So you actually don't need to sand between coats of nitrocellulose lacquer. As I've told you guys many times, it doesn't matter if it's a full gloss, as long as it's not like waxed from your polishing. As long as it's nice and clean, you can spray right over it. It doesn't hurt to sand, but they melt together. This allows you to do a couple of extra things here, a couple things that you can't really do with other clear coats, one of which is drop filling. So if you've got a ding, a little dent, a nick, a tiny hole in your nitrocellulose lacquer, you can drop in a drop of nitro and it'll melt in. And if it leaves a little bump, you can just sand that off flat and polish. No problem. You can also do some more interesting stuff where, for example, you spray some nitrocellulose lacquer onto a piece of wax paper or a glossy like sticker backing paper and let it dry. And then it'll create a little nitro film. You can literally deposit that on top of a dent and spray either some lacquer thinner or some very, very heavily thinned lacquer, like 80% thinner to 20% lacquer over that. That'll melt it into the surface, and then you can sand and polish. So there are a lot of options there, and in those cases, yeah, you can use your clear coat to fill in scratches. I only recommend you do that when it's a scratch in the clear. If you've gone down below that, you have to be very careful about how you address it. You have to be careful about how you add color, and particularly in cases where you're using a transparent color, like a sunburst type effect. If you overlap, you're going to have problems. It's going to show, so you've got to be very careful. But generally speaking, yeah, if you're using nitro, if you know how to do it, you can fill in scratches with it. So those are some basic principles of how this works. It does depend on how deep the scratch is in pretty much every case except maybe the drop fill with the nitro. So if you're trying to fill in just by coating over and over with some kind of clear coat, keep that in mind. 800 grit scratches, like I said, absolutely no problem. That's what it's for. 400 grit, it'll still fill, but it'll take a little more, and you might see a couple. And as you go down, or if you've gouged it with something, you're going to have a bad time trying to fill it with clear coat. That's really not what it's for. I hope that helps clear things up. If you've got specific examples or questions, please drop them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you know a lot about this stuff and you see those questions, feel free to drop an answer. I know a lot of you guys aren't shy about doing that, and usually I appreciate it, especially those of you who are actually right, as opposed to some of the utter nonsense that occasionally gets posted on my like how to get a gloss finish on MDF with spray cans video. People talking about sealing their stuff with glue sticks or whatever. Anyway, once again, hope you found it helpful. If you did, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Remember to subscribe so you can stay tuned with all of my projects, because I've got a few on the go and a bunch more coming. Again, going to try and keep that more organized. And we've got a bunch of these topics coming up as well. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.